so let's go ahead and start out with a stretch. Open up the rib cage, and as the arms come down, keep that rib cage nice and tall. Good. And roll the shoulders.
Did a nasty core workout yesterday, so I'm like,
oh yeah, you'll feel it.
Here,
you'll feel it. Yeah, you'll feel that as we're going through. So just if you need a break in between, take a break, because that's if I sing for more than a few hours a day, my abs are exhausted. So if you are already sore, like you're gonna feel it. So let's do a few sighs and sirens. Oh. 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 Yeah, try to flip over to that head voice a little bit earlier. Oh, yeah, I like that a lot. Good, and then top to bottom. Oh. Woo. Woo. Yeah, do that one more time and go a little bit slower over the break. Yeah, good. You hear how it breaths out on the bottom there?
Yeah.
It just turns into breath instead of tone. See if you can get a little bit more into your chest on the bottom and sing through. It's hard on the lip trill, but it's good work on your break.
It's a lot harder than lip. Like,
yes.
Because I'm so much more relaxed.
Exactly. So
I've been trying to do this. So.
This is the thing with the lip trill. Yeah, and you see it dies as soon as it gets to like the medium low. You still have plenty of notes that you're not getting there. The reason why the lip trill is so good for that is because a lot of people learn to have a very tense chest voice. They learn to activate the resonance and the ring and the power in the chest by tightening everything up. So that teaches you to activate your chest voice while keeping all of this loose and relaxed. Because as soon as you start
trying to work on that, because that's been a problem.
So low lip trills and doing that on doing that for your songs will help you a lot as well. So like take your songs and take a low chunk of a song and sing it on the lip bubble and see if that helps you out. Because that'll really, if you can release the tension in the low chest, then you won't carry up as much into the mid chest, and that's where the breaks and the cracks start to happen. So if you can get rid of it in the low area, almost every high note has a low note before it, and if you can sing the low note well and free of tension, the high note will come out on its own. Good. Humming. Very nice. Be careful, and it might just be that your mouth is dry or something, but be careful of the in between the breaths. That's a habit that can be tricky to break if you've been doing it your whole life.
2:30 coffee, so.
It just starts to annoy after a while, and you really notice it when you're on a mic. It really sticks out, and you won't notice it because it's something you're just doing, just because like you're like, my mouth is dry. I'm just gonna, it's like you don't even pick up on it. It's like the likes and the ums and the ahs and the so's and the no's and all that stuff. And so as soon as a mic's on you, that really pops out.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of professional recordings where I can hear that on there, and I can just hear the breaths, and like you can hear the little sniffs and like these little things because they're so close to the mic, and the audio editor just didn't catch it.
Or I mean, sometimes you don't want to get rid of that.
Sure, there are sometimes that you authentically, especially in like a singer-songwriter style, that stuff like that can make you feel a little bit more authentic. But there's a lot of like overproduced pop stuff that just where it's like obvious that they wouldn't have wanted it. It's just there because they didn't bother to get it out. But
interesting.
Anyway, just be careful of that one. Nice tall vowel space inside, shape the vowels on the outside. Keep that inside. Good, can you give me more space on the first E. Sometimes my hands forget what key we're in. Good. I've been using this one for the last couple weeks that I like a lot. Of if you think of like a Santa, ho ho ho, ho ho ho, that really helps you to feel that ab activation on the start of each sound. Ho ho ho, ho ho ho, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ya ha 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 ha, ya ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Nice. Can you add a little bit more resonance, a little bit more ring, sing through the last note a little bit? I'm getting it's just a little splatty. Just give it a little warmth. Try one more. And the lip trills and a lot of the other stuff we do is to work on keeping that activation down here in the core, keeping the start and the stop of the sound from the core, and disengaging the neck and the throat and the jaw and the tongue as much as possible so that all the power comes from here. We talked about earlier the lip bubble dying when you're down the bottom of the chest, because a lot of people power their chest with throat tension. Same thing here, that like you're not going to be able to get your chest to be in a comfortable, relaxed, healthy, easy place until you have the power coming from somewhere else. Because there's a reason that tension's there. Like tension doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's there because it made the sound you wanted at some point in your life. But you have enough breath support, enough power, enough engagement, enough growth as a singer, enough increase in muscle mass and body size and lung capacity as an adult man. You have enough that's adjusted in your voice since you first learned to sing that you can power it from here instead of powering it from here. When you were a small kid and you didn't have any training, like maybe that's all you could do to get that sound to come out. And like you wanted more sound and like you did what you had to do. But for now, you're going to get a better sound if you can eliminate some of this and get it down there. And that's one of the ones that just the Santa thing really made it click for me and a lot of my students, because it's impossible to do that without actually feeling your belly bounce. Like it's just what you do. Good. Let's go a little bit higher this time. Let's do nay. Yeah, so crescendo into the bottom, into the top, and then come back. Sorry, that was me. Good job. Yeah, warm up that middle note. First note. Nay. Good. Flow right over those top notes. That's good. Clean up the vowel on the first one. Yeah, if you can give me a little more space on the ne. EH, not EY. Nay, no. Try that one more time. That was beautiful. Good job. You can still give me more space on the ne. Yeah. Good. Try one more. Float the top. Yeah, and that floaty stuff up there, that's great, and it's great to have access to that when you need it to float those high notes. Don't worry that there isn't as much power. I mean, that was a high B. Like, you're not going to be singing a lot of high Bs in your songs. So when you need it, it's there in the floaty falsetto space. You don't need to have that kind of screen power up there, but if you can get that to be more free and light and relaxed, that'll make it easier to add power on the notes that are a little bit lower than that, the G, the A flat, the A when you need it.
I'm trying to get some more power in that head voice up there.
Yeah, and that's like, I know that realistically the thing that you could expect is a little bit more power in your F sharp G. You could get a little bit more bite, a little bit more chest, a little bit more belt up there, and that's going to be aided by making the notes higher than that easier, so that you can float through that break a little bit more, and then you can spend more time practicing up there. As long as the F sharp G are like the top of what you can do comfortably, then you can't spend a lot of time there. But once you're regularly singing up to the B, the C sharp, and in the floaty falsetto, whistle, whatever, then you can you can spend more time in your break area around that F sharp G and develop it a little bit more when it's more comfortable and you can easily go above it and below it and kind of siren and sigh and slide through it. You can develop it a lot stronger. Good. Let's do. Can you make sure they're more connected? Yo,
Yeah.
One line. Open up the space in the back of the throat as well. Nice. Float right over that. See if we can get two more. Good. Try for this top one. Lock it in.
You gotta get higher than that. Like, once it's a little bit higher, it actually is more comfortable. So, like, I can keep going there. It's
Well, that's what I was saying before, is that the more comfort you build above that area, the easier it gets to work there. Because there's only so much work you can do when it's a struggle area. We could spend 5-10 minutes there, but like after that, you're not gonna be able to sing anything in that range that well.
Well, it's like once I'm at like that kind of B, C range,
it just floats
feels,
right out.
It's way easier than the A.
Exactly. The G sharp A is really a danger
like,
zone.
Here we're now in full head, and it's just like okay, I can get a couple of.
And the goal is to be able to bring that down a little bit lower and be able to access that, so that when you need to sing there for a long time, you can go full head and treat it just like the high Bs and the high Cs. And then in those select moments when you want to add a little bit of chest to your mix to get a little bit of power belt there, you know how much you have there. Maybe it's 2 or 3 times a day. And then there's if I want to belt a high A or a high B flat, if I want to add a little bit of power there, I can do that 2 or 3 times a day. I can't do it 7 times a day. Like there's some range between 1 and 10 and that I can and can't do. You know? And so you got to figure that out for yourself in your voice. But the more you can bring down that pure head and bring that into your medium place, then you can continue to sing those notes all day long and just add the power in those select moments that you need to. So you can practice the songs all day, and then when you go, you then practice once with the actual tone you want, and then go on stage and use that. But you can practice the song 6 or 7 times by just using a little bit more head to keep your stamina up while you're doing it.
Yeah, one thing that I've sort of noticed is, well, first of all, my warm up gets me to that. Like my break contracts a lot when I warm up.
Yes, very
like
cool.
a lot.
Yep.
And it's like not there at all, and then slowly it's there. And then second, I think it's easier for me to go up as opposed to go down. Like shifting from
chest to head,
chest to
head
head
to chest.
Yeah, and isn't it normally the other way around?
Generally, yeah. From a pedagogical standpoint, it's usually we usually start teaching from the head down into chest before the opposite, just because it is easier to make damaging mistakes on the way up than it is on the way down.
Okay.
Because it's very rare that people will shift to the chest too early on the way down, but they will tend to hold on to the chest too long on the way up. And it's chest too high that causes problems. Head too low doesn't really cause problems. I mean, it's not a beautiful tone, and it's not something you really want to use all the time. And people who talk in their head voice all the time, exactly. We know those people, and like it's not unhealthy for your voice. It's just kind of a weird sound. So like whatever, but it's not really going to damage you. But a high chest will end up damaging you unless you're doing it in a really well produced, healthy, technically accurate way.
That makes sense.
Whereas a low head just is kind of helping to build that bridge a little bit more. So that's why I try to bring the head down. But yeah, it's understandable for you because you are older. You've had a lot more experience, not like training experience, but singing experience. Singing
and then I can't hit the note.
Years.
Well, I'll work my way. Oh, okay.
Exactly. Well, and exactly. You probably spent years working up. And not many years working down. So like what I would say is that it's generally easier for an amateur who has not done a lot to come down. But just like it's probably easier for you to learn baseball than water polo. But if you spent 6 years playing water polo, then you're going to be better at that than baseball. And it's like, okay, is baseball an easier game? Yeah, but not if you've played 6 years of a different sport. So you've been doing the work up for quite a while. So I imagine that's part of it too. And you will. The things that are difficult for you are the things that you have the most potential for growth in.
Exactly.
So those are the things you should spend the most time.
Of course.
The things that you are good at are the things you should show off in performances. So when you write your songs, write them toward your strengths. But when you practice toward your weaknesses.
Of course.
And continue to build your strengths, because like your strengths are the things you want to show off. And like you don't need to be good at everything. The example I used 1,000 times, Bob Dylan. Like you don't need to be good at everything. He's not that good at a nice floaty head voice. It doesn't happen that often. The same thing with every major singer. Like Justin Timberlake doesn't have a thick, rich, powerful chest voice in his lower range. Like he's known for his floaty, high falsetto stuff. And Beyonce and Mariah Carey and Christina Aguilera, you got agility singers, you've got slower ballady singers. You've got Frank Sinatra was not the world's best singer, but he told a good story. And so you got to know where your strengths are. And he knew where his strengths were so well that he would, smoke cigars and be drinking on stage in between songs, because it wasn't like I would not suggest that for you, because you were trying to have a beautiful tone. But beautiful tone wasn't his primary goal. He would, the crooners sing in a way that's almost like spoken, just singing and speaking. And they don't have tons of high notes, so he doesn't need to maintain, anything on the real high end, because it's mostly in that middle baritone range. So you can be smoking and drinking and still sound fine. Now, it's not ideal, but you prioritize what you're gonna prioritize. So know the things you're good at, like that. If you know that the heading up thing is easier for you, then write your songs toward that. But when you're practicing, think about the things that are a struggle. So let's do one more before I hear you sing. Go ahead and take the breath the first time. Head voice for the first 4 notes, chest voice on the bottom. Good. This time without the breath. Good. A little bit more in the chest when you get there. Not necessarily volume-wise, but it just was a little hesitant. It was pretty heady when you got there, so just go full chest when you get there. Yeah, so did you feel that little bump when it switched over, that little gap in the volume? If we looked at the spectrograph of the sound wave, you'd see the dip in the decibels. That is why I wanted you to go stronger with the chest, because when you pull back a little bit, it kind of covers over that little shift over. I want you to feel that. That's what this exercise is for, is to feel the clunking of the gear shift in the car, and to make that clunking easier. It's what you were saying with the warm-ups before. The more you warm up, the more that kind of smooths itself out. And the more you specifically sing over that ka-chunk, 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 it gets to a smaller little ka-ching, ka-ching. And that's much easier to manipulate. So try that one more time. Same thing.
So you want basically full throttle,
Yeah, not full. Yeah, exactly. 100% head, then 100% chest. Not full throttle volume. I don't want to get. but you can hear there's still a little click in my voice too, and that's what I want on this version.
Okay.
We'll smooth it out in a second. Yeah, so you actually stop the sound completely that time, which is fine. Be aware of that, because like that was the
I noticed.
Well, it wasn't your intention, right? Which is very interesting, because it's like you didn't go in starting the exercise thinking I'm going to stop between the two of them to make it easier. But in the moment, as you're just about to shift into chest, something in your vocal cords told your brain it's going to be easier and sound better if I stop here. And that's why I want you to sing through it, because I want you to see what happens when you don't.
I know.
Because the more you do that, the smaller that gets, the easier it gets. So like what you're doing is an effective coping mechanism, but using crutches for 10 years. Yeah, so that was a less pleasing sound than the first one where you had the break. I agree with you. So if you're performing, do the thing you did first. But when you practice through it.
Okay.
Because it's not going to get better unless you do.
So actually, like, their voice cracking a little bit is...
Exactly, a little bit. Now, you don't want to, like, over-exaggerate. Exactly, that's not a healthy thing for the chords. But a little bit of it is fine. And getting used to the feeling, playing around that space, going, maybe even just going up and down over that note again and again. Yeah, you're gonna feel, and that's what I want is for you to, you've had in the past vocal cracks, and when they've happened, you've disliked that so much that your brain, when it anticipates something happening, exactly, I love that. Your brain, when it anticipates that happening, like shuts down your vocal cords and just says, nope, we're gonna just pause the sound and then come back in, and we're just gonna, but you are good enough now that you can sing through it. You need a little training, you need a little work, but it's like taking those little breaks is like you staying on crutches for 10 years. Like, it's gonna be easier to walk with the crutches, but eventually you gotta throw the crutches away and learn how to walk again.
Right.
So good. This time, top note is head, bottom note is chest. Get there in between as you need to. So you notice it's a lot smoother when you wait a little bit longer on the chest, because you didn't really, you were still like half and half, maybe 60-40 head for those last. You were maybe 80-20 on the second note, you were full chest on the bottom, but like the third note was like 60-40 head voice. You still had head all the way down through.
I tried earlier that time.
And you could hear, I didn't like the sound as much because you tried it. And it's not that you can't do it earlier, but that was a pretty direct shift, like we did the first time. So that's, but you'll just notice that if you bring the head a little bit lower, it makes the cracks easier to negotiate. Because the higher you initiate the shift from head to chest, the more aggressive that crack is going to be. So you still heard it, there's still a little bit of a wobble there, but it's not as noticeable when you use a little bit more head to smooth it over. Good. This will be the last one. And like literally there's some amount of hours you need to spend doing that before you'll learn the physical sensation of how to sing through that. It's like learning to balance on a bike. I can talk to you about it all day, but you gotta sit on the bike to actually feel. So I would say play with that for 10-15 seconds a day. Just find a middle place in your range and switch between head and chest and force the cracks out and sing through them. After, don't overemphasize the cracks or make anything, over about, but just whatever naturally comes out with an ear toward making those cracks smaller and more controlled over time.
I think so. It's easier for me to kind of like ease into it when I'm going from chest to head.
Great.
Going down, it's like abrupt.
Yes, and those are the kind of things you're only going to realize from long-term practice.
The more I do it, even just like doing it every day for a week.
Makes a huge difference. And the big thing is, you don't even need to be, you need to be self-aware, but you don't necessarily need to be able to describe all of that to me, because your body is going to learn those things. And there's certain things about singing, it's what we were saying before with that little gap. Like, you didn't choose to stop the sound and then come in on the chest. Like, your body chose that, because it was like, this is going to be a better sound.
And this is kind of how I treat music in general.
Yes.
It's you play what you feel, you sing what you feel, and then you analyze it after.
But you need to develop those feelings. You need to develop good instincts because we don't come out of the
Well, that's
womb
what
with everything.
When
now,
you
so
analyze it afterwards, then you're like, okay, I need to do this differently.
and
you
then
think
you
about it,
practice
practicing,
it, practice
and
it,
then you stop thinking
then you
about
practice
it.
it 1,000 times, and that breaks the chain of the old
Yeah.
one. But the old chains are still there. That's one of the really hard things about learning and shifting, especially physical motions and things. The more I learned about brain science, the more I was like, okay, this is really helpful for learning and growing and changing things. But it's also really depressing. Is that like they've tried millions of things to increase IQ and learning ability, like nothing seems to work. So there's that depressing fact of like you're as smart as you were when you were born. That's about as good as you're gonna get. But the main thing is that when you learn things, what's actually happening in the brain is that the chain of neurons that fires for that action gets myelin around it, which is basically like insulation on an electrical wire. It's a fatty sheath that goes around to make the electricity fire more easily, so it solidifies that chain. So you can learn a new pattern and myelinate that sheath too, but it takes time for that myelin to die. You can't just go in and strip the myelin off the bad one that you don't want. There's no process for that. You just have to wait for it to degrade, and every time you do the thing you didn't want to do, again, it remyelinates. So you have to not do that thing, as if you're trying to quit smoking, whatever. Like the next time you pick up a cigarette, that chain's gonna fire right back up, and they're gonna cover it in insulation again, and you're gonna be ready to go. So after 10 years, it's degrading for a while. So on a microcosm, that those little accommodating strategies, those crutches, those cracks, those things that we're trying to work through, they already have a really well insulated chain. So you have to build the other chain so much that it's stronger than the original chains. That's why you have to practice that 1,000 times. But then it's still going to go to that old chain sometimes. So you need to keep practicing the good things so much that you just don't even have any mental space to go back to the old thing. But there's no way to just break the bad habit. You have to build a good habit that's better than the bad habit and practice more. And you've practiced the bad habit for years. So you'll need to practice for many, many weeks consistently before you will find that you can do consistently the thing that you can do at your best. The thing you can do at your best is going to be very rare until you're practicing pretty much every day. And then you can make that more of your consistent performance.
Yeah.
Cool.